Get out of our new house right now.
Eh? Why? This is completely different from our previous conversations. As I ask in astonishment, my husband utters even more surprising and hurtful words.
Stop playing dumb. This is your fault, isn't it? I want to take care of my family. It's because you've been harassing my mom and sister that things have come to this, right?
I haven't done such a thing. I stand there dumbfounded, staring at my husband's enraged face. My name is Emily. I'm currently 29 years old. I have a husband named Michael, who is 6 years older than me. I've been good at studying since I was young, and I've worked hard in a planned manner both in going to college and job hunting, using my natural diligence. Thanks to that, I'm currently working at a major pharmaceutical company. I met Michael through an introduction from a man named Steve, the husband of my friend. He works at the same place as Michael, and I was introduced through my friend, Sarah. At that time, I was so engrossed in my work that I wasn't interested in romance. I found working even more enjoyable than studying, and I felt a sense of fulfillment from it. Sarah was worried that I was drifting away from marriage, as I was shy, in contrast to Michael, who was bright and sociable. We thought we could complement each other well, so we decided to get married. Regarding living arrangements after marriage, both Michael and I had above-average incomes, so we decided to keep our finances separate and only share the living expenses. We were able to start both our wedding and married life peacefully, but there was one problem. My relationship with my mother-in-law. To put it bluntly, she didn't like me. A woman working so much, it's indecent. And having separate finances as a married couple, I just can't believe it. She would constantly criticize my job and our marriage. Regarding the place we live and the content of our wedding, she would always have something to say, like, isn't that a bit too luxurious? Back in my day, things were different. It was exhausting, especially on top of my busy work schedule. Since the relationship between a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law is delicate, I had no choice but to listen quietly, and it was wearing me out. Even when I consulted Michael about it, he would only say, I think Mom is just lonely, you know? Look, we don't have Dad anymore, and she's living alone now. Can you just bear with it and keep her company? Indeed, my mother-in-law would not only call or email to nag and complain, but she would also do so in person. However, she didn't demand to visit our house or summon me, so I decided to continue bearing with it. Despite these issues, our married life continued peacefully. Eventually, we started planning to buy a house. We had talked about buying a house before marriage, deciding to do so before having children. At that time, the idea of living with my mother-in-law came up briefly, but Michael said, I think Mom would probably prefer not to live with us, so we decided to live separately from her, which was a relief considering our strained relationship. On the other hand, I was concerned about my own parents. Michael, if it's okay with you to live separately from your mom, could we live with my parents? My mom isn't in the best of health, and my dad is getting on in years, so I'm worried about them. It would be great if we could live together so I can help them out anytime. When I asked this, Michael readily agreed, saying, I think that's a great idea. We were planning on buying a fairly large house anyway, and we can invite them to move in when it's ready. At this point, I was somewhat concerned because he seemed a bit distracted, but I was happy that he agreed, so I didn't press the issue further. When I told my parents about the living arrangement, they were very happy. Just to be sure, Michael also informed my mother-in-law that we would be living with my parents in our new house. Right after that, my mother-in-law contacted me, complaining, you're really self-centered. You decided to live with your parents without even consulting me. I'm sorry. We did consider living with you, but
that's enough. I refuse to live with a daughter-in-law like you.
Her words hurt me, but since we never intended to live together in the first place, her refusal wasn't a problem. While continuing our meetings with the real estate company, we were living in an apartment. One day, an unexpected person visited our apartment. It was my sister-in-law. She had gotten married and moved out, but I had heard from Michael that she divorced after her husband cheated on her, and she returned to her parents' house. I quit my job right when I got divorced. I don't feel like working yet, but I need money to live. When I heard her story, it seemed she had come to ask Michael for a loan. I went to call Michael, and for some reason, he reluctantly came to the living room. I get it, but I don't have any cash on hand right now.
What?
I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise. It seemed strange that he didn't have any cash on hand, even though he should be earning well above average. I just don't carry cash around. Michael tried to get away with saying that, but my sister-in-law seemed troubled and wouldn't leave easily.
My mom's savings are running low, and I can't even pay this month's rent. Can you help out?
Michael glanced at me briefly. I felt a moment of discomfort, but reluctantly decided to give her some money myself. Afterwards, my sister-in-law quickly checked the number of bills, said thank you with just a word, and left immediately. Later, I tried to talk to Michael about her and my mother-in-law's detailed living situation, and when they would return the money I lent them. However, he responded quite irresponsibly, well, things seem to be tough for them, right? They'll pay back the money soon. We're living together, after all. No need to rush. Since then, I've been spending my days with anxiety as my sister-in-law started coming more frequently to borrow money. And not through Michael like at first, but directly asking me for money. I probably shouldn't have given her money in the first place. Maybe she got carried away. We have our own household budget, so it's hard to just give away money as she demands. But when I politely refuse, my sister-in-law gets furious and starts yelling.
You two live together and don't even have $1,000 to spare? I'm unemployed and barely getting by. I'm a part of this family too, right? You could at least help out a little.
Still, I apologize, saying it's difficult, and manage to send her away for the time being. Then she immediately comes back, this time bringing my mother-in-law with her.
You're being too selfish. Michael's sister is your sister too. You can't just leave your family struggling while you live comfortably, that's just cruel. That's right. Do you want us to starve to death? You might as well have just said that. I never should have given my blessing for this marriage. We're just too pitiful.
They barged in, yelling at me, and made their way inside. Then they started rummaging through my drawers.
You keep money here, don't you? Please wait. This is causing me a lot of trouble.
They didn't listen to my pleas and took the living expenses I had stored in envelopes. If this continues any longer, our life will be ruined. I stood there, dumbfounded, watching them leave as I felt a mix of fear and desperation. That night, when I told Michael about my anxiety and fear, he unexpectedly brushed it off. They're in trouble, so it can't be helped. You're my wife, right? My mom is right, we're family. Just handle it somehow. I'm tired and it has nothing to do with me. Saying that, he went to bed alone. Michael works at an advertising agency, and indeed, he seemed very busy at work around that time. He was working late almost every day, and there were many weekends and business trips, so maybe he just couldn't afford to be concerned about anything else. But it's really tough for me when he won't even listen to my problems about family matters. We finally got our own house, but can we really continue to live like this with the family relationships in this state? I was already harboring great anxiety about the long married life ahead of me. And as for Michael, he wasn't home as much, to the point where it couldn't just be chalked up to his job being busy, and our conversations also diminished. Unspeakable suspicions spread in my mind. I had many sleepless nights for a while. And to avoid being swindled out of money, I took it upon myself to avoid meeting my sister-in-law and mother-in-law. I would go out on days when it seemed likely they would visit, and I avoided conversations over the phone or email. Thanks to these efforts, I didn't give them any money after that. Although I received sarcastic and insulting words via email almost daily, by intentionally being out and not meeting them directly, I somehow managed to get by without giving them any money. The matter of our new home proceeded smoothly, and a few months later, the house was completed as planned. Thinking ahead to a two-family dwelling, we installed bathrooms and toilets on both the first and second floors. The kitchen was spacious, bright, and easy to use. The layout for doing housework was perfect. We planned to call my parents over after we finished moving in. And just when our living environment was set up and it was time to call my parents over, shocking words came out of Michael's mouth. About this house, I've decided to live here with my family. So can you not call Emily's parents over? And you, get out.
What? Why?
This was completely different from our previous discussions. As I stood there dumbfounded and asked, my husband said even more shocking and hurtful words.
What are you playing dumb for? It's your fault, isn't it?
I just stared at my husband's furious face, completely stunned. I don't understand what you're saying. Please explain it to me. I know that you have been harassing my mom and sister. You turn them away even though they've come all the way here, don't answer the phone, and ignore their texts. Of course, I have no memory of ever harassing them. It seems like Michael has some kind of misunderstanding. I do feel sorry about that, but I can't keep giving them money any longer, it would be a problem. Money, money. You're so stingy.
It wouldn't hurt to help them out a little. Do you know they've been asking for thousands of dollars each time? We have a mortgage to pay on the house, we can't do this.
My family is your family too. Don't you want to help your own family?
Why are you saying the same things as your mother and sister?
I couldn't hold back my tears any longer, and they started to flow. But without trying to understand how I felt, Michael furiously banged on the table.
You've cornered them so much that my mom and sister are both hurt. They're both mentally broken down. I never thought you were such a terrible person. Wait. I just wanted to protect our household finances. If I had kept giving them thousands of dollars, it would have affected our future. I'm sorry about your sister and mom, but I think that's their own problem. I can't keep answering to their unreasonable demands. I'll protect my mom and sister. So I'm going to call them here and live together with them. You've cornered my important family, and you don't understand how busy I am with work. I don't even want to see your face anymore, so get out of here right away.
With an exaggeratedly fierce expression, Michael yelled at me. I was dumbfounded for a while.
You're a wife in this house. Shouldn't you be dedicating yourself more to me, this house, and my family? You're not quitting your job, and you're working just as much as before. Do you want your earnings that badly? What was the point of getting married then?
Being bombarded with complaints one after another was exhausting to just listen to. Indeed, due to the days of no conversation, the relationship between Michael and me had already broken down. Furthermore, I continued to refuse the money solicitations from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. It was natural for the two of them, who had come to resent me, to win him over to their side. On top of that, they probably wanted to take over our newly built home for themselves. And Michael, who was fed up with me over work and personal matters, swallowed their story whole and proceeded with the plan to kick me out. It's a lie if I say I wasn't hurt. He's my husband, whom I loved enough to marry. It's sad that our relationship has broken down like this, and it's painful and extremely frustrating. However, on the other hand, I had been considering leaving Michael. He wouldn't listen to me even when he was home. And I was getting fed up with him, who wouldn't even look at me. And there were other reasons. As proof, I had secretly prepared divorce papers. Even though we put so much thought into building this house together, it's really a shame that things have turned out this way. But if you insist that much, I guess there's nothing I can do. I'll give up the house to you and your family. But in return, I have something I want to say. I don't want a separation where I just move out and that's it, I want a divorce. So, please sign these divorce papers. When I placed the brand new table and the divorce papers on it, Michael chuckled through his nose in disbelief. You're well prepared. I've reached my limit living with you too. If you want to kick me out that badly, the feeling is mutual. Let's talk about moving towards divorce from now on. This situation was unexpected for me, so to ensure nothing like this happens again, I'll be recording our conversation from here on out. Michael reluctantly agreed, though his face showed his displeasure. That night, I wrapped up all discussions related to the divorce. Since we had separate finances, there was no need for property division. Michael had bought the house under his name initially, so he would continue paying the mortgage. After settling everything, Michael signed the divorce papers. I quickly packed my bags, took the divorce papers, and left the house. On the doorstep, I suddenly felt the need to ask Michael something. Hey, we've just decided on everything, but you're going to be unemployed, aren't you? Are you really sure you can handle the mortgage? I had expected him to get angry or make excuses, but instead, Michael avoided eye contact and gave a foolish reply. What are you talking about? His attempt to play dumb frustrated me to my core. Yes, I knew. I knew that Michael was about to be fired from the advertising agency he worked at. Despite his predicament, he was acting clueless, and I was beyond pissed. I couldn't deal with his family anymore. However, I was now a stranger to him. It was none of my business anymore, he could do whatever he wanted. After all, I had already investigated his actions and taken necessary precautions. And then, carrying my bags, I returned to my parents' home to start a new chapter of my life. My parents seemed somewhat sad about my divorce, but when I expressed my desire to support them, they warmly welcomed me. Life became peaceful again as I commuted from my parents' house to work. That's when it happened. One day, while at work, I checked my smartphone and saw a ton of missed calls from Michael. Now practically a stranger, an ex-husband, what could he possibly want now? However, I had an inkling. I had no intention of calling back, but when he called again while I was at home, I reluctantly decided to answer.
Emily, don't you dare ignore my calls.
I was at work, what do you expect? Now, what do you want? I can't pay the mortgage on the house. If this continues, I'm going to lose my home. Oh. And? I responded indifferently, but inside, I thought, serves you right. That's why I told him. Did he really think he could manage without a job?
The bank contacted me. My mom and my sister are ignoring me. I've been deceived by all of you.
His story was falling apart. I was already fed up and didn't have the words to respond. Michael, a former section chief at the advertising agency, was known to have issues with his work attitude. Especially towards a female colleague, which had become a significant problem. He was persistently asking her about her personal life and engaging in excessive physical contact when no one was looking. Unable to bear it any longer, she consulted her superiors. The issue escalated quickly, and Michael was repeatedly warned. Even though we were divorced, I was embarrassed to have been associated with him. Steve, who introduced me to Michael, works at the same company as him, so he obviously knew about this situation and seemed to have been giving Michael some harsh advice. I wonder if he didn't feel the crisis of me finding out at that point? Even in such a situation, it seems that he couldn't quit his job after all. On the other hand, the company was actively working on improving the work environment for women, and they were taking a serious view of Michael's actions. He thought he was doing it secretly, but it seems he wasn't careful enough. Eventually, after being brought up at numerous meetings and deemed to be too much to overlook, he was fired. I heard about this whole situation through Sarah, via Steve. And the day after we broke up, Michael was formally given his notice of termination. On the day I decided to divorce, he had made a foolish response when confronted about being unemployed, but he couldn't fully accept the fact that he was being fired and probably just wanted to bluff his way through. I definitely won't sympathize with him, but honestly, I'm starting to feel sorry for him. So what if you say that? We're divorced now.
We are strangers now, so deal with your own debts. Even if we're divorced, I'm still your ex-husband. What's with that attitude? I don't want to hear that from someone who got fired. You thought I didn't know?
So you did know. I thought something was off that time. Yeah, I heard it from Sarah through Steve. So, that's how it is. There's no point in talking to Michael any longer. I wanted to hang up the phone quickly. But from the other end of the line, he kept trying to hold me back. Wait, please. I want to cancel the divorce. Let's get married again. No way.
Why should I remarry you after you took away the house?
My mom and sister are just being selfish. I'll kick them out. And Emily got it all wrong.
Wrong? About what? She won't talk or come home. And upon checking, you were having an affair. I can't remarry someone like that. That's not true. It's a misunderstanding. You think it's a misunderstanding? Haven't you heard from the lawyer?
I was the one who sent a lawyer after Michael. I had been investigating this matter for quite some time. When I was feeling exhausted from dealing with financial requests from my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, Michael started working overtime and going on more business trips, and he stopped coming home. I felt lonely that he wouldn't talk about family matters, and at the same time, I started to suspect his private life, so I secretly hired a detective agency. And the results were damning. He was repeatedly going on late-night dates and trips with a woman other than the one who complained about harassment at the company. While I was hurting and struggling with issues regarding Michael's family, he himself was happily spending time with another woman. When I found out, I felt a sense of clarity as my suspicions were confirmed, but at the same time, I was overwhelmed with anger and helplessness, and I cried all night long. One of the reasons I felt I couldn't go on when I brought up divorce over the house issue was this. Just before the divorce, I took some of the evidence to a lawyer for consultation. I was claiming alimony for his affair.
All that is a setup. You just want the house back, right? What else are you dissatisfied with? Which mouth of yours is saying that now? The evidence I entrusted to the lawyer clearly shows your affair. I'm telling you, that's not true. Should I show you more evidence then? Apart from what I've given to the lawyer, I have more proof of your affair. Why don't you believe me? Because it's the truth.
Fed up with my ex-husband who's pleading innocence ridiculously, I couldn't help but raise my voice. Anyway, I'm really in a bind because I can't pay the mortgage, so I want you to remarry me and come back home.
No way, that's out of the question. Please! You're still working, right, Emily? I admit my mistake. You weren't bullying my mom and sister.
What?
Are you bringing that up now?
He had previously accused me of attacking his mother and sister and hurled abuse at me under this misunderstanding just because I was still working. Now he dares to say this. My sister, who got divorced and became unemployed, was probably begging you for money, right? To protect our household finances, you were refusing her, but then even my mom started blaming you together with my sister. That's right. But realizing it now is too late. I wanted you to understand that back then. Who was it that was fooling around with his affair partner while I was suffering because of those people? I'm sorry, all right. I've admitted my mistake, isn't that enough?
Unfortunately, I can no longer trust you.
Feeling a strong aversion to my ex-husband who is now trying to cozy up to me, I desperately wanted to end the call. Please, I can't pay the mortgage without Emily. So, you want to get back together with me just for the money? I can't believe it. Listen, it's not just the affair, I know why you lost your job too. You were hitting on a girl at work, and even after the boss warned you, you didn't stop, did you? You've really hit rock bottom.
That's a misunderstanding. I would never do such a thing. So, even if you hadn't brought up the house issue, I would have suggested the divorce anyway, considering all these things.
After I said this, Michael finally fell silent. Probably feeling frustrated and unable to find any more words to say. I cut off the call with my hopeless ex-husband then and there and blocked his number. Since then, I have been living with my beloved parents and dedicating myself to my work as usual. There were days when the affair and issues with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law affected my ability to concentrate on work, but I love my job and continued to work hard, achieving great results. My hard work was recognized by my superiors, and I received promotions and salary increases. I heard about what happened to Michael afterwards from Sarah. Apparently, he couldn't stay unemployed and tried to get a job, aiming for a fresh start. However, the reason he was fired from his previous job became a major hindrance, and it seems that he wasn't hired anywhere. Now he's somehow making ends meet with a low-paying part-time job. There's no way he can pay off the mortgage on a single-family home in such a situation, so it seems that his mother-in-law and sister-in-law had to get part-time jobs as well. His plan to take over the house without paying for it has completely fallen through, and he must be making a sour face right now. And Michael's savings have decreased considerably. He seems to have contributed a significant amount to the woman he had an affair with. On top of the mortgage, he now has to pay alimony to me. Additionally, he's being sued by a female employee from the company he was messing around with. The alimony payments to her are piling up, and I heard that his meager savings were quickly depleted. Right now, they must be working their tails off, all three of them, trying not to lose the house while cutting back on their living expenses. I can picture them, worn out from being exploited for minimum wage. And especially the sister-in-law, who was desperate to borrow money from me, turned out to have cheated on her husband in the past, although she had told me she had been cheated on and divorced. When that came to light, her husband got fed up and divorced her. She had to pay him alimony and ended up in debt. She was probably planning to use the money she took from me to pay it back. Really, what on earth are those siblings doing? I regret getting involved with such a brainless family, but I'm really glad I could quickly divorce and cut ties with them. Several years later. So, with this, the contract is complete. I am currently planning my second home purchase. It's a more comfortable and ideal home for living with my parents than the previous one. Thank you so much. This is much nicer than the previous house, isn't it? Thank you. I'm happy that the three of us could discuss this together. It's a shame that your marriage ended this way. It's fine. I've already forgotten about that idiot. What's most important to me are my parents, who raised me. As I said that, my parents smiled happily.
From now on, I will start a peaceful and happy life with my parents, who have always supported me.
I'm really looking forward to our new home being built.